With a deep inhale, he breathed in the silence, relishing the tranquility of the empty corridor. For a brief moment, the world felt like his. No noisy students, no teachers, no responsibility. He could be himself here, without pretense. He reached out, his fingers tracing the cool metal of his locker. The click of the lock shattering the silence, he opened it to reveal the messy interior, papers spilling from the top shelf. He grumbled under his breath, annoyed by the chaos in his locker. The books were haphazardly thrown together, a mess of loose sheets and pencils. With a frustrated sigh, he started gathering his books for the first few periods. As he rummaged through the jumble, he muttered to himself, "Damn it, when did it get so messy in here? Gosh, I'll clean it eventually." He shrugged nonchalantly, but the look of annoyance remained on his face. He knew he should have tidied it up days ago. But between training, classes, and the occasional fight with you, he hadn't found the time. He shoved the last of the books into his bag, shutting the locker a bit forcefully. He pushed himself off his locker, casually making his way through the empty hallways. He pulled out his phone and glanced at the schedule for the day. His first class was history, with a teacher who was sure to drone on endlessly. He rolled his eyes, mentally preparing himself for the boredom that awaited. He smirked, his step quickening as the thought of a nap crossed his mind. History class was his least favorite, and sleep seemed infinitely more appealing. At least I can take a nap before class starts, he muttered to himself. Mister, boring won't notice anyway. He pushed open the door, a yawn on the verge of escaping his lips, but his eyes widened as he entered, his jaw nearly dropping. There, on his desk, sat a girl, her head resting on crossed arms. He recognized her immediately. It was you. He stood frozen in the doorway, staring in disbelief. Why were you there, so early? Irritation bubbled in his chest as he stared at you, sleeping on his seat. Who the hell did you think you were? He clenched his fists, his eyes narrowing. He considered waking you up, demanding to know why you were there. But then he paused. You looked so peaceful, your face devoid of the usual defiance he was used to. Instead, he grumbled, his voice low. Of all the places you could sleep, you choose my seat. Typical. With deliberate steps, he approached you, his gaze fixed on your sleeping form. He crossed his arms and glared down at you, his voice laced with possessiveness. You know, this is my seat, he practically growled. It's not your personal snooze fest. He stood over you, the irritation in his voice growing stronger. Why were you not waking up? Why were you ignoring his presence so unabashedly? He reached out, his hand hovering over your shoulder, considering giving you a sharp nudge to wake you. But instead he hesitated, his eyes roaming over your face, noting how peaceful you looked. He let out an irritated groan, his frustration mounting. Why were you here so early? You were never early. That was his thing. And now you had to show up here, asleep on his seat. He started pacing slightly, his hands clenching at his sides. Why are you even here? You're never this early, he muttered. And on my seat of all places? He stopped in his tracks, his arms folding tightly across his broad chest, his gaze never leaving you. He clenched his jaw, his annoyance growing by the second. You can't just do this. He was used to you challenging him, provoking him, driving him insane. But you sleeping so peacefully on his seat, it threw him off balance. He let out a huff, still annoyed by your audacity. With a swift movement, he grabbed a nearby chair and spun it around, positioning it backwards. He sat on the chair, his muscular frame leaning forward to rest his arms on the back of the chair as he watched you sleep. He let out a low scoff, his irritation momentarily forgotten as he leaned closer. He extended his hand and gave you a sharp poke, whispering, "Hey, lazy, you gonna wake up? Or do I need to drag you out of here?" He watched your face, waiting for any signs of movement, but you remained still, unaware of his presence. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a low whisper. "You're really testing me, aren't you?" he murmured, his irritation replaced by a hint of amusement. He was beginning to enjoy this. The fact that you were so completely unaware of him while he had a front row seat to your peaceful ignorance. It was both annoying and oddly endearing. He shifted in his seat, his eyes roaming over your form. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on your blonde hair, accentuating its brightness. He found himself strangely fascinated by the way the light danced across your face, casting faint shadows that accentuated your features. He shook his head, trying to rid himself of this weird feeling. Why was he staring at you like this? He fidgeted in his chair, his irritation slowly seeping back in. He muttered softly under his breath, his voice laced with a hint of exasperation. "Move. I mean it." He was torn between waking you up and letting you sleep. Part of him wanted to shove you off his seat and reclaim it, but another part of him was oddly enjoying the sight of you, so relaxed and oblivious to his frustration. He reached out a hand, hesitating for a moment, his fingers hovering above your head. He knew he shouldn't be touching you like this, but he couldn't resist the urge. Slowly, he gently ran his fingers through your hair, feeling the soft strands beneath his touch. He was surprised at how soothing the action was, the tension in his shoulders easing as he continued to gently pet your head, an unexpected contentment taking over him. His fingers moved mindlessly through your hair, the action becoming almost subconscious. He should be annoyed, irritated, angry even, but strangely, he couldn't find it in himself to be any of those things. He continued stroking your hair, his touch almost tender, his eyes fixated on your sleeping face. He almost found himself forgetting about the fact that you were on his seat. Almost. He leaned closer, his lips barely above your ear, and whispered softly, all right, you can have it. Just this once." He couldn't believe the words coming out of his own mouth. He was known for his possessive and territorial nature, and here he was, practically giving up his seat to you, all because he found himself unable to wake you up. He let out a heavy sigh, his hand running agitatedly through his hair. He couldn't pinpoint what he was feeling. Annoyance? Amusement? Affection? It was all muddled together, a swirling mass of emotions that confused him. He looked down at you, your sleeping form oblivious to the storm happening within him. He shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts. What was happening to him? He straightened up, his attention shifting to the distant sounds of students approaching in the hallway. He knew class was about to start soon, and the last thing he needed was to look like he was hovering over a sleeping person. With a resigned sigh, he pushed the chair back and took the seat behind you. His eyes still fixed on your sleeping figure. He tried to compose himself, his expression turning stoic as he prepared for the class to begin. He fished his phone out of his pocket, a desperate attempt to divert his attention away from you. He scrolled through the notifications idly, pretending to be preoccupied. But unbeknownst to him, a small smirk had formed on your face, hidden behind the facade of sleep. You had been awake the entire time, silently enjoying the show of emotions he had unwittingly displayed. You couldn't help but feel a sense of victory as you watched him try to distract himself on his phone. You had played your part perfectly, pretending to sleep while he unwittingly spilled his feelings without even realizing. You slowly began to stir, your eyes flickering open as the sounds of students filing into class filled the room. You sat up, stretching and yawning, a satisfied smile still lingering on your face. You didn't need to look back to know that he was sitting behind you, probably still trying to act nonchalant, but you knew better. This little victory felt sweet, and you couldn't wait to see how he would react now that you were fully awake and aware of your surroundings,